Stepping out of this room and leading change boldly. That's the biggest thing for me.
Okay.
Leading change boldly. To be able to go out there and challenge status quo. I've been in situations where I've been asked to implement a certain type of change, and I have actually pushed back because I know that it is going to have adverse effects on people. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I think the very first thing is, how can we go out there and lead change boldly, knowing that the actions we take can impact people, even if people are going to be let go, because sometimes people are going to be let go from a job. How are we doing it in such a way that is empathetic? Because how we do it is going to affect or could affect their lives. Welcome to Change Leadership Conversations, where we dive into what it takes to lead change in today's disruptive and fast-paced world. I'm Yvonne Ruke Akpoveta, founder of the Change Leadership. We create change leadership training, conferences, content, courses, and community to support professionals and organizations. This conversation comes from the Change Leadership Conference, where the tables were flipped and I found myself in the hot seat in a powerful and unscripted conversation led by Cher Jones, brand expert and founder of Socially Active Training. In this episode, we explore what it truly means to disrupt status quo in how we lead and respond to change. I share reflections on building the change leadership ecosystem, from conference to community to courses, and the deeper purpose behind this work. We also dive into leading change boldly, even when it means challenging decisions, navigating tough realities, and putting people at the center of how change is done. This conversation is about courage, intentionality, and the responsibility we carry as change leaders in shaping not just organizations, but lives. I invite you to hit the follow button and stay connected with our change leadership community.
Love it. Are you ready?
I think I am. Full disclosure, I don't know what she's going to be asking me.
She doesn't know it all. Because this is all about disrupting the status quo. So that's why you don't know.
Yes.
But let's start exactly with the concept. Tell me, what does disrupting...
I think I am. Full disclosure, I don't know what she's going to be asking me.
She doesn't know it all. Because this is all about disrupting the status quo. So that's why you don't know.
Yes.
But let's start exactly with the concept. Tell me, what does disrupting the status quo mean to you, and then how it influenced where we are today?
Okay, so just doing this fireside chat is disrupting the status quo. So anybody who's come to the conference knows there's always a video that plays about the change leadership, right? We're not doing that video this year, and we're doing things differently. For me, disrupting the status quo is, let's change things differently. I've always liked this quote that we talked about. If you continue to do the same thing and expect different results,
it's just not going to work.
It's not going to work. I was actually listening to a speaker last year, and she shared her journey about how she did things differently. And when she did things differently, she got different results. And it wasn't status quo. And a lot of us here in this room are in change management. And I do a change leadership course. And during the change leadership course, I found out that when designing it, we always want methods and methodology. We want to do things the same way. But yet, we talk about wanting different results. We talk about, this is not working. I'm not getting buy-in from my audience. I'm getting pushback. People are resisting change. So when I was designing that course, I remember I put up, the second module was models and methods. And everybody got stuck in methods and models. We all wanted to know what to do with methods and models. And I had to move that back to the very last module so that people could really focus on leading change more around the neuroscience of change, the human way of doing change. For me, disrupting status quo is, let us start to think about how we can do change differently, lead change differently to get those results that we want and overcome those challenges that we constantly have. And just designing this conference, I hope you were able to see it, that we brought different types of speakers to disrupt the usual status quo of what you would get at conferences. So that's a little bit about, for me, what disrupting the status quo is.
Well, we couldn't have asked for a better answer because you really went deep into a few questions that I had. But I want to dive deeper into the construction of this conference, because you have seen it evolve and change over the years. But with this theme being disrupting the status quo, talk to me a little bit about how you brought the themes, and not necessarily the themes, but the different components of this conference and how you constructed it so that we got here today.
To be quite honest, it didn't actually come out the way I had planned. When I thought about the theme, disrupting status quo, and it was a lesson that I also learned, I was actually going to go to a different venue. I was like, let's go to a different venue. For anybody who's been coming like 8 years now, Aliana, Jane, and then we have Daria, who last minute she's online, but this is the first time she's not here in person, and she's been here 8 years. We've kind of done things similarly, like we've held this in the mass for a few years. So I thought, okay, let's even disrupt it and go to a different venue. And the venue we chose and Nelly went to, it didn't provide accessibility in the way we wanted it to be. It wasn't going to provide the right experience. So even when we think about changing things up, we still need to think about our audience. We still need to think about the people we're working with, and it's not just about changing for the sake of changing, yes, but it's about understanding your audience and how do you lead differently. And so for the theme of this conference, it was also about leading and responding to change differently. So that was what disrupting the status quo meant. It wasn't only about how do we lead change differently, but how do we respond to change differently? Like we had you share, like bringing in somebody from a brand perspective, because it's also about you in your own journey. How are you responding to change? Because most times you come, it's like, oh, how do you lead change? What are you doing for others? But what are you doing for yourself to lead change effectively? How are you responding to change? That's why we had the mental health aspect, for you to think internally, but also for you to think externally. How are you also supporting your team and those people that you're leading? But how are you also managing your own mental health? So this was about inward as well as outward. How are you responding, but how are you leading, but how are you doing it differently? So every aspect was curated in terms of the topics. I know sometimes there's some people in the audience probably that say, I want to see the agenda before I come to the conference or before I make up my mind. Right. But sometimes it just takes us that long to think about the topics. Sometimes coming out of the conference, we already know that first speaker that is going to be at the conference. And it takes us a while because we want to really bring something different and unique to the audience. Every aspect, we look at it in terms of how can we do things differently. Like I said, it's about the audience, and we love our AV folks that are constantly supporting us. We love all of our vendors. So we also like status quo.
And it's, again, not changing for change's sake, but changing on purpose.
Yes.
I got it. So when we think of, okay, we have everyone here today learning and broadening their perspective, because when you change the way you see things, the things around you change. So you're bringing a different mindset, different tool set, and different folks together where they can also learn from each other. It's the network, it's the community. Mm-hmm. And so when we think about what's in this room, what goes beyond this room? What do we do after this?
That was actually a question that somebody asked me right after the conference like 5 years ago. They're like, so what next? We've come to this conference, we're inspired, we want to think about change, we want to lead change differently, what next? That kind of led us to what we call a few C's in terms of what we do. We have 6, 7 C's that I can quite honestly never remember all of the C's. I was already doing the consultancy around change management, so that was a C. We were doing the conference already, so that was another C. I do coaching and mentoring, that was another C. We started to build out also on the other C, which was content. So we put out a lot of content, build out resources, our social media constantly trying to put content which is of value. So that was one. But the two things that really came out of that question which was asked was community and as well as a course.
Yes.
The person was, what was my learning after that? And that was a very specific question. And that got me starting to think about developing the change leadership course, which was really about espousing the values that we believe in when it comes to what makes sense or what works when it comes to leading change. And that was very neuroscience-based, talking about agility, talking about leadership, talking about vision, empowerment, collaboration, communication, those kind of things.
Which is a change
which is emotional intelligence.
Methodologies and approaches and
exactly.
ways to...
And which is also a challenge because everybody wants certified course because that's what's going to open doors for you. So even when people have asked me, oh, do I go for this certification or do I go for this? I say it's either. It depends on what your objectives are. If you really want to know how to lead change, this course helps you. But if you really want to get doors open for you, because when you go for that interview, that's the first thing they're going to be looking at, right? Then this works for you.
So that's the coach, Yvonne.
That's it. I can't help myself. So that was one thing. And that was community. There was somebody who attended the first time and they said, that's it. I found my tribe. She never told me that directly, but she actually told someone, and that was Allegra, actually. She gave feedback to a friend and she said, I found my tribe. Just being in a room of people who are also change leaders, people who are aspiring for the same vision, people who want to do good in the world. So there was that community, and that was why we started to invest in creating a community. So we have a platform community. It's hard work.
It's hard work creating a community.
It's hard work, but we continue to do it. But so now the conference brings new meaning in terms of bringing the community together. So it's not just that conference which is helping us drive home that message of doing change right, but it's also having to bring those like-minded, diverse-minded people as well into the same room to connect and have a place where they can also call home.
So you've got community, coaching, consulting, courses. I know they're like content. Look at that. I already got 5, and I think there's 2 more.
Conference.
Consulting. Yeah, I said the consulting, but we got a lot of C's. Did I miss one? Okay, so there's a lot of intentionality even by the alliteration, and which is phenomenal, because it sounds like, just as we're having these discussions, it's that other layer of change, that one, a lot of people are not being fed in this area. A lot of practitioners are not being fed in this area, and it gives them that whole circumference of change. Sorry. But that whole circumference of change, that whole your 360 degrees of change. And it sounds like that's something that you're more intentional with, as well as filling in those gaps that are actually big holes.
I say no because I'm not as intentional, but I am intentional, if that makes sense. Okay. So coming up with even the 7 C's was coincidence. It was really like we're doing, we're already doing these things, and we realized that there was a C to it. So the only one that didn't quite work in the C was like maybe conference, events, community. So I just called it conference. Right. Workshops, it just became a C. So it wasn't very intentional. It was about me really just following my passion and seeing something out there. I saw a need. So when I see a need, I just follow. I don't think about the big picture. I just think, this is a great idea. We really need to be doing this. Let's do it. Then I come back and say, what the heck was I thinking about?
Of course.
Because it's a lot of work. So you start to think, do I really want to do this? But when you now really think of why you're doing it, and which I shared at the beginning of the conference, when it's bigger than you, and you see that this is about lives changing and lives being impacted. I give the story every time, and some people here may have heard it. I went to see a friend, and in a different state in the US. And when I went to see her, we were going through the mall. And if you've ever been to some of the malls that are dying out, that are almost dead, and we're walking through this mall, and she pointed out to a section. She said, when I had my baby, and it was a really low period for me, I was down and I needed time. I remember I used to come to this area, and there used to be a lot of mothers there, and that was what really gave me the support that I needed. But that place was empty. There wasn't anybody there anymore because the malls were closing down. I'm sure when the malls were closing down, you didn't think about that community and social aspect and the fabric of the society that it was going to affect. But that's what, when you're not able to sustain yourself, or organizations are not able to sustain themselves, you go to a town where the manufacturing plant has shut down, you see unemployment, you see high crime rates, you see all kinds of things. So the impact of when we don't lead change right, when we don't respond to change, when we're not thinking about the next new technology coming and how we incorporate it into what it is that we're doing, it affects more than that organization. It affects a whole big community. So that's really the driver behind why I do what I do, that how can we do change right? Because we are the leaders within our organizations that can support our organizations. And it's changing, you understand? Our roles are changing, and we're going to talk about it in the other panel. It's just about finding ways for us to do change right.
Okay, before we change topic,
yes,
what I want to know from you is, everybody's in this room right now, what's the opportunity that they have to take what they've learned or take the next step in what you have to offer? Because clearly there's a lot of passion behind your why, and the resources are there to back it up. There's opportunities for, I know, for example, you do a lot of corporate training as well. There's another C. You want to add that to that?
I just found another C. I like that. I'm going to add that.
There you go. As we have everybody in this audience, everybody's riveted listening to every word you say. So what are you telling them to do? What's your call to, call to action. That's my theme for the rest of the interview, okay?
C.
C is for Cher, C is for Cookie. Go ahead. So what do you want people to do? What's your call to action?
Oh, Lord. You know what? So the first thing that came to mind as a call to action, and unfortunately this is who I am, is coming in, you would have seen on the decals on the floor. So the first thing for me is stepping out of this room and leading change boldly. That's the biggest thing for me.
Okay.
Leading change boldly. To be able to go out there and challenge status quo. I've been in situations where I've been asked to implement a certain type of change, and I have actually pushed back because I know that it is going to have adverse effects on people. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I think the very first thing is, how can we go out there and lead change boldly, knowing that the actions we take can impact people, even if people are going to be let go, because sometimes people are going to be let go from a job. How are we doing it in such a way that is empathetic? Because how we do it is going to affect or could affect their lives. So it's how do we do it very differently. That's the very first step that I would say people need to take. Another thing is to continue to build this community of connections that we have and continue to be those people that raise the flag in terms of how we can continue to do change better, respond to change better and faster, and do it in a more effective way, type of thing. Those are some of the things that, unfortunately, like I'm thinking about. And Cher, we're having a conversation.
Yes.
And interestingly, I didn't know this was going to come up. Or like I said, I didn't know her questions. I just brought it up to her randomly. I ask this question to my friend all the time. I think, outside of me, change leadership or this conference, what happens? Will the change leadership continue to happen and exist as an organization? Do I need some succession plan? Who takes over? Those are some of the things that I think about. And the answer to that is that the succession and the plan is everybody in this room to continue to drive home that message. Even if we don't have a conference again, even if we don't have everything, is that everybody here is an ambassador. Even the volunteers we have, everybody here is an ambassador of taking that message home in terms of how can we do change better, differently. So I think those are, when I think about in my heart, what's really important to me, which when people leave today, that's what I think about them taking away.
Okay, so I appreciate all of that. But as someone who is a champion of change for you and a champion of what you're doing, what I want to encourage everybody is to recognize, while you are here, there are many people that weren't able to come that work within your organization. There are many supports, many resources that you can also bring back and champion as a paid resource. So that's where I'm going with that. So meaning champion what Yvonne has and the platform that you're building for change and bringing these different perspectives back home, meaning at work, and being able to champion those opportunities for other people to learn at scale.
I can answer that question.
Thank you.
I can answer that question. So if I had to think about that question to make life easier for myself, make life easier for my team, make life easier for the volunteers, because there's a lot of hard work that goes into this conference. And you know, we just always breathe a sigh of relief when it's done, like going to bed at 12:30 today and waking up at 4 o'clock just to be here, is that if you had to do something, if you found this conference really valuable, buy your Superbird ticket tomorrow when the link goes out.
Yes.
That helps us plan to say, we're going to be back here next year, we're going to be doing this next year. Even the ambassadors, we gave out a gift to some people who referred people to attend the event. And that was not just a transactional item. It was really from our hearts to say, we value you, because you just referring people and bringing your team to attend, it goes a long way. So it's more of an appreciation that we do it. So if there's something that people could think about, let's continue to build this community. Let's continue to build this message. It's really things like buying that Superbed ticket early. It's about helping us to find people who can sponsor the event to be at cost. Because I'm not going to lie, putting this event together is different from somebody who wants to put a DEI event together. You mentioned the word DEI, and organizations are willing to drop money to show that they're supporting DEI. You mentioned change leadership, organizations are not. So having sponsors like BMO,
yes,
who believe in the vision, or Lead Podcasting, who do this, and Green Shield, who believe in what we're doing to sponsor this, makes a whole lot of difference for us to come back each year again. So just helping us to find partners and sponsors. Also, one of the things we have to continue to drive that home, that message in terms of how we can do change differently, is our change leadership course. Right. That we have. So that's a different ways that you can really support the cause that we have to keep going, because everything here costs money.
Right. And so being able to even support coworkers, another C, racking them up. Could someone here then buy a course for their coworker?
Yes, because some people might think, I don't need this, but do you need it for your team?
Yes.
That's a different way to do that. We've had people we had somebody attend the course and they said, oh my gosh, this is fantastic, and got 4 people on their team to say, you all have to do it, and supported their teams in being able to attend it because they saw the value in it.
Perfect. So we are going to switch gears now, and when I think of change, that's kind of your brand. How has your brand evolved? And what has that been like for you? Of course, I'm going to bring a personal branding question into that. So tell me a little bit about how your concept of the conference has impacted your brand, especially as the years have gone by. What has that done for your brand?
To say that I accidentally built my brand by just being consistent in doing what I enjoy doing.
Okay.
So I kind of love the whole thing about change. I've said this, and it's maybe 1 or 2 people may have seen that post. I'm humbled that I have found my ikigai. I have found that thing that I just love to do, where it serves a purpose in the world. It serves your passion. It's a gift in terms of what you do. When I look back through the years, friends sent me this booklet that I did how many years ago. I put a booklet together. I was doing a program. I've been doing what I've been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
Just because I love to do it. So I just go out there, I do it, I test the water. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But you're just consistently putting yourself out there. I would say sometimes I've unintentionally built a brand. Okay. But at the same time, everything you say about my brand is also intentionally a reflection of me.
Right.
And I continue to try to be a reflection of my authenticity, which I struggle with. I struggle with authenticity in this world that is trying to shape you to be something else. I would say that's something I struggle with. But I'm consistently just trying to be my authentic self.
And being your authentic self and putting yourself out there, even if it feels inauthentic, yet it's who you are. How has that opened doors for you? What have you seen as a result of, as you mentioned, consistency?
I remember I got flown into the US to deliver a workshop and training and do all of those kind of things. They really went out of their way, and I didn't do any marketing. But this was just somebody that found me, saw my work, read what I did, and they pulled all strings to make sure I was there. When I said, oh, my flight has been delayed, it's been changed, they drove 4 hours by themselves to come pick me from another airport. And 4 hours back.
Look at that.
And this wasn't anything, because marketing is not my thing. But this was just a reflection of just me putting our conversation there, doing what it is that I love to do. And somebody finding the information. I said, how did you find me? They said, oh, I went to find something, then I Googled something, then I saw something you wrote. Or somebody who's attended my course, oh, I heard you on a podcast and you spoke about this one topic. And because you spoke about this, I had to find you and I had to come and talk to you. And those were all things where I was not intentionally trying to sell anything. I was just trying to be myself.
Right. And it created access for you.
It created access and opportunity.
To people you wouldn't have had access to if you did not put yourself out there.
Yeah, putting yourself out there. So that's it. Because, okay, one thing people are not going to believe is I'm an introvert. Okay, I'm an ambivert. So putting myself out there, I struggle. My default is I just want to sit in front of the TV, order takeaway, have my gin and tonic, and just watch TV. That's me. That's my perfect idea of a wonderful evening. But I have to intentionally, from a brand perspective, put myself out there. I have to force myself to network. I have to force myself to do things. When I'm out here, I'm enjoying it. That's why I say I'm an ambivert, because people tend to see my extroverted side. So I'm blessed to be an ambivert. But to your point, for anything you need to do, you need to put yourself out there. You need to be seen. Sometimes if you're not really pushing for what you want, you're not going to get as much as you deserve.
Exactly. So I want to wrap up our conversation with a question coming in from the audience. And it's a great question to wrap up our conversation. And how do you pick the theme for the conference every year? How are you going to pick the theme for next year?
It might just be in a conversation I'm having with somebody in the room and they just ask me something. They ask me a question. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a great theme for the year. I'm inspired by the people that I surround myself with to give me the idea for what to do next. And so that's why community is important. That I keep on saying we're collaborating as change leaders. We know one of the biggest values is collaboration. And that's another big call out to the folks in the room when you ask me, Cheryl, what next is let's collaborate. So I love collaboration.
Okay. Appreciate this insider look at change on all levels. And you really brought it today. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Change Leadership Conversations. Be sure to hit the follow button, leave us a review, and share this podcast with your team or fellow change leaders, because leading change is better when we do it together. For more insights about our Change Leadership Training, Change Leadership Conference, or free resources to help you lead and respond to change, visit thechangeleadership.com. Until next time, keep leading change.